Prime Minister Naoto from Japan, it's my great pleasure and honor to introduce you today. We know it is extremely difficult for the Japanese Prime Minister to leave the country at the beginning of the National Diet in January. However, you have come all the way from Japan to spend a very intensive day and to share your views with us. Japan is one of the world's 3 largest economies. It's considered by many as the most innovative economy in many respects. It has an important strategic position in East Asia. It plays an important role in the G8 and the G20. Therefore, we consider it important that the last day of the annual meeting has been traditionally marked by the visit of the Japanese Prime Minister and his delegation. But your visit today, Prime Minister Khan, is considered as a special moment, since you are regarded as a true innovative force in Japanese politics with new clear concepts which you will present to us in just a moment. You want to give Japan a new impetus based on a new growth strategy aimed at providing green and inclusive growth and greater human security. Prime Minister Khan, you represent, to take up the theme of this year's annual meeting, the transformative force required to bring Japan into the new reality and to develop those new and shared values. Ladies and gentlemen, please warmly welcome the Prime Minister of Japan, Naoto Kan.
First of all, before my address, I would like to briefly touch upon the current situation of Egypt. Egypt and Japan have long amicable relationship traditionally, and Egypt is a country playing an important role for peace and stability of Middle East and entire Africa, and we really appreciate that. Currently, the society of Egypt is in the unstable situation, and the President Mubarak announced his intention to implement reform. I strongly hope that the Egyptian government will start a dialogue with many people immediately and initiate reforms in a way to gain broad support and participation of the people, and that it could immediately restore the political stability and peaceful civil life in Egypt. That's my strong hope. Now, Dr. Schwab, Executive Chairman, and the distinguished attendees, it is my great honor to be given the precious opportunity to speak before the history-rich annual meeting of the World Economic Forum here in Davos. I say this not only because the world's political and economic leaders gather here, but also because Davos has a tradition of viewing matters from the perspective of the weaker members of society and putting citizens' wisdom to use. After studying applied physics at university, I went to work as a patent attorney while continuing to engage in grassroots activities. It was from this situation that I entered politics. I made my start in a party with only a handful of members in Japan's national diet, and after 30 years of work, last year I became president of the Democratic Party of Japan, DPJ, with more than 400 members in the diet, and then the nation's prime minister. It is with deep emotion that I attend this forum today, looking back my 30 years of activities. At the beginning of this week, the Japanese diet session started, and then I crossed the Eurasian continent to be here this weekend. Why I came all the way to Davos? Because the theme of this year's gathering is so important, in addition to the inherent importance of Davos meeting itself, because the theme is shared norms for the new reality, which matches my own personal thought, which is the major reason for me to choose to come here. During the latter half of the 20th century, Japan opened up its national economy to the world and grew into an economic power. However, now in the 21st century, there is growing concern in Japan that in the midst of its economic stagnation, the number of the young people going to abroad to study is declining, so the minds of people in Japan, including youth, seem to be becoming inward-looking. So maybe spiritually and economically, maybe it's important for us to open up ourselves to the rest of the world. That kind of opening up is something that we really need to do now, and that is the major direction we should head toward. At the same time, forging new connections between individuals is needed so that the opening of the nation will not bring about rupture among people. Therefore, when we open up our country, in Japanese, we refer to such a connection as kizuna, but we should now try to create this new kind of kizuna or interpersonal bonds. So, during this Davos meeting, I would like to focus upon those 2 points, that is opening up and the kizuna interpersonal bonds, during my speech. First of all, today, the world faces major changes that can be likened to a tectonic shift both in national security and in economic fields. Faced with these circumstances, Japan needs to take a new diplomatic approach. Last week in Tokyo, I gave a lecture on foreign policy. In it, I named 5 pillars for Japan's foreign and national security policy. First, the Japan-US alliance as the cornerstone of Japan's foreign policy, which has been a basic stance for Japan. Second, the new development of foreign relations with Asia. The third, the promotion of economic diplomacy. Fourth, efforts to address global issues. Fifth, Japan responding appropriately to the security environment surrounding it. These 5 pillars are formulated with a new reality very much in mind. Against a background of Asia being at the center of major tectonic changes, the Japan-US alliance, which I named at the top of the list, is becoming even more important. Japan's alliance with the United States should continue to play a role as public goods, fostering peace and prosperity in the Asia-Pacific region. So, together with the USA, Japan would like to contribute to the peace and stability of the Asia-Pacific region, and we would like to play this solid role. In Asia, for Japan, its relationship with China, which is expanding influence in Asia as it achieves remarkable economic growth, is extremely important. Both Japan and China have important responsibilities to bear in the international community, and will need to enhance cooperation in a wide array of fields, such as economy, regional stability, and global environment. Well, as a Prime Minister, I have experienced something wonderful. That is, I met with several leaders, or many leaders, of especially the emerging nations, and those leaders of the emerging states told me that emulating Japan's success has led to their growth today. And they have achieved the wonderful result after this. And I was so glad to hear that. We need to further assist these emerging countries in their growth in terms of technology and finance. This is my belief. At the same time, we need to draw on energy of those nations, and we'd like to turn it into our own energy in Japan, which I think the important challenge for us as well. During the last century and a half, Japan opened itself to the outside world twice. The first time was which was about 150 years ago, when the nation abandoned the samurai government's policy of shutting itself off from the rest of the world and advanced its modernization. It's called the Meiji Restoration. And with the second opening after the end of the World War II, Japan followed the path of democracy and free economy. And Japan restarted itself at that second opening. Through these two openings, Japan literally opened up the door of its economy to the world. In addition, new political and social structures were created through developing the attractive aspects of Japan's traditional culture as they actively absorbed new ideas from foreign countries, and Japan carried out what could be called the opening the nation from within. And these are two experiences of opening up ourselves. This spirit of opening up the nation is now called for in Japan. With this belief, this year I have set the third opening of Japan as my grand objective. One specific policy is the promotion of economic partnerships. The Japanese economy is already one of the most open ones in the world. Free trade is the best way to share prosperity with the world. Based on this recognition, Japan has been implementing free trade. Japan will make efforts to promote the Doha round negotiations of the World Trade Organization, WTO. To date, we have concluded 11 economic partnership agreements so far. Yet, Japan has, for the past 10 years, been virtually at a standstill while a number of many countries promoted bilateral and intra-regional economic partnerships. Therefore, in November last year, my government adopted a basic policy on comprehensive economic partnerships with a view to actively promote economic partnerships. With respect to TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, last year, we began consultations with the relevant nations based on this basic policy. The Japanese government will continue to hold consultations with the United States and other relevant nations and reach a decision on whether to join negotiations by around June this year. We also very much look forward to beginning negotiations this year with the EU, another important trade partner for Japan. The voices are heard in Japan that promoting economic partnerships will endanger Japan's agriculture. But I do not take the approach of choosing between the liberalization of trade and the survival of agriculture. Promoting economic partnerships and revitalizing agriculture are compatible. For example, 2 days ago, a Japanese food culture fair took place in Davos, I heard. Many people must have enjoyed that food fair. Japanese food culture, which took form in the particular cultural milieu of our nation, is now attracting praise around the world as delicious and healthy. And Japanese people are very pleased to hear this. In fact, the output of Japan's agriculture ranks fourth in the world. As the attractiveness of Japan's food culture spreads throughout the world, it is possible for Japan's agriculture to revitalize itself as a growing industry. This is my belief. Along with our efforts in the economic arena, we will renew our efforts in tackling global challenges. There are concerns over whether tackling global environment problems is compatible with economic growth. My view is that they are compatible. The key here is, needless to say, innovation. Japan is a top runner in this area of innovation. Japanese hybrid vehicles, which enjoys the 90% global market share, and LED lights produced in Japan, both have the potential to reduce CO2 emissions by around 40% compared to conventional products. We also have various technologies in producing renewable energy through using plants. Simply put, you even produce the gasoline from plants, and that kind of technology has been developed in Japan as well at a high level. The technologies and insights fostered by Japan, a nation with scarce natural resources, are being used to support measures to cope with climate change in developing countries. We are assisting, for example, Mexico's efforts to reduce electric power consumption by 20% by increasing the use of energy-efficient household appliances. We are also providing assistance to Malaysia, which is reducing its electric power consumption by improving climate control equipment in factories. This sharing of Japanese technologies not only contributes to protecting the environment, but is also effective in reducing the burden to procuring energy and natural resources by those countries. Japan will continue to take the lead in grappling with issues facing the world, including the area of environment, and showing the global community models of ways to overcome them. In the course of opening up a nation, and introducing new economic and social systems, there will always be people who are left behind the pace of change. In our transition to new systems, the traditional social, regional, and familial ties that once assisted these people may weaken. While reform and economic growth can bring prosperity and freedom, they can also increase disparities in society and the isolation of individuals. I believe it is necessary to create new kizuna or interpersonal bonds in order to avoid such a situation. So I would like to emphasize the creations of new kizuna, these bonds. Jeremy Bentham once declared that the pursuit of greatest happiness for the greatest number should be the objective of policy. The role of politics, in my view, is to minimize the suffering that exists in society. In short, to aim for a society with the least unhappiness. I thought this idea ever since I was young. Why is it the least unhappiness that we have to pursue? Happiness and prosperity are to be pursued by free individuals based upon their own values and ideals. Politics, which is among other things an exercise of authority and power, should not intervene in this individual process as to what the happiness should be for each person. Meanwhile, on the other hand, there are causes of misfortune for anyone, such as disease, poverty, and natural disaster and warfares. Minimizing such unhappiness is something that we, the politics with power, should implement. And this is my strong belief. As long as these sources of suffering remain, they can prevent individuals from pursuing their happiness or prosperity with peace of mind. Minimizing unhappiness is thus the first role that politics must seek to play. It is for this very reason that today, when the traditional bonds, kizuna, are weakening, we need to create new bonds to alleviate the disparities and social isolation that could accompany the opening up of a nation. From this perspective, efforts aimed at social inclusion are extremely important. There is a need for society-wide activities in which the government and volunteers cooperate to assist those who have fallen on hard times beyond their family members. This month, I set up a special task force within my cabinet to expand initiatives in Japan aimed at social inclusion. In Japan, at the same time, work has provided a wide range of bonds, kizuna. And I would like to touch upon this. Work has been considered in our country as something not only to gain wages, but also bring about a sense of accomplishment or pleasure of contributing to the society. This has been the meaning of worth or value of work. Through working, we connect ourselves with society and secure a place to be and are given a role to play. In order to reinvent these bonds, I have positioned employment at the center of Japan's national policies, not only from economic but also from social aspects. Every day, I actually recite this motto of employment, 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 and I advocate employment. The culture of emphasizing social inclusion and the tradition of cherishing work have long been nurtured in Japan. I am not calling for a return to old ways. I think that we need to create new bonds suitable to the times and regions in which we live while we look to the past for guidance. The image of a spiral staircase might illustrate this point well. Although at first glance, it looks as if we are merely going around in circles and returning to our past. In fact, we are climbing up to the next higher level, while these Kizuna bonds seem to be weakened. And so Japan, we would like to really create this spiral staircase style model of development. And by presenting this model to the world, Japan would like to make a contribution to the world. Japan has been emphasizing the concepts of human security, which is also being discussed here in Davos. And it is exactly what the notion of creating new bonds is all about, because its objective is to reach out to respective individuals, each person, and enable them to live their lives with dignity through their protection and empowerment. Based upon this concept, and with a view to contributing to the achievement of the MDG, Millennium Development Goals, we are focusing on enhancing health and education. I announced my intentions in this respect at the high-level plenary meeting of the 65th session of the General Assembly of the United Nations in September last year. Japan has also been leading the Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD, since 1993 to assist Africa's self-sustenance and development, as well as consolidation of peace and democracy in the continent. African countries will re-establish connections with the international community, and African economies can find opportunities to participate in global markets. And we will continue our assistance built on the idea of creating bonds. Furthermore, in order to promote creating new bonds in the Asia-Pacific region, I put forward the inclusive growth approach as the chair of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Economic Leaders meeting in November last year as a part of strategy for overall regional growth. This objective is to give all the citizens of each country the opportunity to participate in and contribute to economic growth and to share its benefits as well. Based upon this approach, in the APEC growth strategy, we are focusing on such policies as job creation, support for small and medium-sized enterprises, enhancements of social security systems, and support for women, the elderly, and vulnerable groups in society. Last year, 2 Japanese scientists received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, namely Dr. H. Negishi and Dr. Akira Suzuki. Their achievement was a scientific method known as cross-coupling, which is to separate bound atoms and molecules and create innovative materials by forming different bonds among them. Through this application, various products have been created in numerous fields, such as medicines and liquid crystal displays, LCD. It is a catalyst called palladium that plays an important role in their discovery. Through the work of this catalyst, a new bond can be created after cutting the original old bonds among the atoms and molecules. The role expected of the world's leaders today will be that of catalyst in cross-coupling. In our challenge to build our open future, we are driven to reconnect new bonds, kizuna, to prevent people from being separated from the society. As the leader of Japan, Prime Minister of Japan, I want to achieve a cross-coupling for Japan and for the wider world as well. With this expression of my determination, I will bring my speech to a close. Thank you very much for your attention.
Prime Minister, thank you very much for this comprehensive presentation of your policies. I was struck particularly by your concept of Kisna, because if I think of the purpose of what we are doing here, the World Economic Forum, the annual meeting, it corresponds exactly to this concept of interpersonal bonding. I also was very impressed by your concept of society of least unhappiness. I think it's an interesting new concept which we should apply certainly in our thinking and in our policies. We have time for just one or two short questions. Prime Minister, there was a lot of publicity in the last years that your country, in terms of GDP, has been overtaken by China. Is it worrying you?
By the economic growth of China, China has become the second largest economy of the world, and this is something that is welcoming. At the same time, the economic growth of China gives Japan, this will have positive impact upon Japan as well, economically and socially as well. At the same time, for China, with such a large economic size, should be has greater responsibilities internationally. And I do hope that China recognizes this important responsibility it bears and acts accordingly.
Prime Minister, when you speak about Kisna and particularly also about society with least unhappiness, and you see here in this room over 1,000 people from business and all walks of society, how could you cooperate with those people? What does it mean for you? What do you expect from the World Economic Forum?
The society with the least unhappiness, this is not only for the domestic policy, but internationally, and for in each country of the world, the same concept apply. And I think it's important that things move along this idea. In Egypt, we see instability in Egypt now, but an unstable country, as we look at the reasons and causes of the instability, happy people becoming happier, that's fine, but unhappy people remain unhappy. And people are not paying attention to unhappy people. Such a society becomes unstable, and the political problem might occur. So in that sense, in Davos, the global leaders who gather here in Davos, I do hope that you will have this idea not only as domestic thinking, but as the basis for global thinking. That, I think, is extremely important. And this is in line with the concept of human security.
Prime Minister, you mentioned opening up the nation and the third wave of opening up the nation. Now, some cynics could say we have heard this before. What is really new in your third opening of the nation?
Actually, right before I came to this meeting, I had a chance to talk to several other leaders, and they said that it's not just the economy or the society to open up, but opening up your mind, way of thinking is most important. To open up your mind is very crucial for Japan and for the Japanese citizens, people. We have to open up in that way. Domestically and internationally, we should feel that we should play an important role, and we should have more confidence amongst the Japanese to be more active, to be engaged, to cope with such challenges. So our mind should be opened up. Spiritually, Japanese people should open up ourselves, which is first the prerequisite condition. Then, based upon that opening, we will open up ourselves in a free trade economy, and especially with regard to the foreign countries, especially with regard to the emerging countries and developing countries, we should extend our cooperation and assistance more. In that case, we can make a big contribution to help them, and which will contribute to the stability of the world. So Japanese people should have that kind of opened up mind, which is very important.
Let me ask you a personal question. You are, as far as I know, the first Prime Minister whose father hasn't been a Prime Minister, so it's not in Japan. And you are also something which apparently is very rare in Japan compared to other countries. You are a lawyer, and you have been a patent lawyer. So if you take your completely different experience before entering politics, in which way does it serve you, or does it hinder you?
Well, as a patent attorney, as my profession, it's a technology attorney because we were exposed to the technology as a patent attorney. So in that sense, as a person, to think of the society and community on the whole, it was a positive experience for me as a patent attorney. Patent attorney always has to think of two concepts. One is novelty, new technology. The second one is inventive step. These two should be combined. Then the invention will be registered as a patent. So in Japan and the world, we are now trying to reform, innovate. So that is like a new challenge of innovation in a way. By that reform or innovation, I think we will change the world and society. So people will feel inventive, and people can enjoy this inventive step as a citizens in that society. So my career and experience as a patent attorney is sort of linked to the profession as a politician. So I think there's a harmonization between the two professions and careers.
Prime Minister, unfortunately, we have to conclude this session. I think we had a rare chance. Japan is very often not recognized in what is really going on. We had a fantastic opportunity to listen to the person who is now clearly in charge of Japanese politics, and we also should recognize the enormous efforts to fly over in one night, to be with us for one day, and to fly back this evening. Thank you very much, Prime Minister Khan, and we hope that we can welcome you again next year to continue the tradition and hear about substantial progress made with your innovative reforms. Thank you.
I would like to express my appreciation to Dr. Schwab at the same time. I'm very happy that so many of you listened to my speech. Thank you very much indeed.